Captain Jake Morrison sat in his command chair, watching the stars drift past the main view screen. The UES Horizon had been traveling through deep space for 3 weeks now, searching for new planets that might hold valuable resources. Jake was tired, but he loved this job. Finding new worlds was what he lived for. "Captain, we're approaching the Kepler 442 system," said Ryan Torres from the navigation station. The young officer had been with Jake's crew for 2 years now, and he was one of the best navigators in the fleet. "Good work, Ryan. Take us in slowly. I want full scans of everything." Jake turned to his science officer. "Lisa, what do your instruments show?" Dr. Lisa Parker looked up from her computer screen. She had been the ship's chief science officer for 5 years, and Jake trusted her completely. "3 planets, Captain. 2 gas giants and 1 rocky world. The rocky planet is in the habitable zone, but our records show it's supposed to be dead." "Supposed to be," Jake repeated. "Let's find out for sure." The horizon moved deeper into the system. Jake could see the rocky planet growing larger on the screen. It looked brown and empty, with no signs of life. But something felt wrong. After 15 years of exploring space, Jake had learned to trust his instincts. "Captain," Kelly Johnson called from the communications station. "I'm picking up something strange." Jake walked over to Kelly's station. The communications officer was young, but she had excellent hearing for signals. "What kind of strange?" "It's like a transmission, but it's very old, really old." "And it's coming from the planet's surface?" Kelly adjusted her equipment. "Actually, it's coming from underground, deep underground." Dr. Parker hurried over with her scanner. "Let me see those readings." She studied the data for several minutes. "This is impossible. The signal is coming from 3 kilometers below the surface. There's a huge structure down there, bigger than anything we've ever seen." Jake felt his heart start beating faster. A buried structure meant ancient technology. Ancient technology meant the discovery of a lifetime. "Can you tell who built it?" "That's the strange part," Lisa said. "The energy signature doesn't match any known alien technology. It's completely different from anything in our databases." Kelly suddenly looked up from her station. "Captain, the signal is getting stronger. It's almost like it knows we're here." Jake stared at the planet on the screen. Something was down there, something that had been waiting for a very long time. "Ryan, check our position." "Are we in Federation space?" Ryan checked his navigation computer. His face went pale. "No, sir, we're in the Forbidden Zone." The bridge went quiet. Everyone knew about the Forbidden Zone. It was a region of space that the Galactic Trade Federation had declared completely off-limits to all member species. No one was allowed to enter, and no one was allowed to ask why. "Captain," Kelly said in a worried voice, "I'm getting a transmission from Federation Command." Jake sighed. He had been hoping they wouldn't notice. "Put it through." The main screen changed to show Admiral Helen Crawford. She was an older woman with gray hair and stern eyes. Jake had served under her years ago, and he knew she didn't waste time with small talk. "Captain Morrison, what is your current position?" "We're in the Kepler 442 system, Admiral. We detected an unusual signal and came to investigate." "Captain, you are in violation of Federation Regulation 447, the Kepler 442. System is part of the Forbidden Zone. You are ordered to leave immediately." Jake looked at his crew. They were all watching him, waiting to see what he would do. "Admiral, we've discovered what appears to be an ancient structure. This could be the archaeological find of the century." Admiral Crawford's expression didn't change. "Captain, I'm going to tell you something that's classified at the highest levels. The Forbidden Zone exists for a reason. We've lost 17 ships in that region over the past 100 years. Good ships with good crews. Ships that simply vanished without a trace. But Admiral, if there's ancient technology down there, Captain Morrison, I'm not asking you to leave. I'm ordering you to leave. Some boundaries exist for good reason. The Forbidden Zone has claimed every expedition sent there. I won't add your ship to that list." The transmission ended, leaving the bridge in silence. Jake stared at the planet. On the screen, The signal was still pulsing, still calling to them. He could feel it somehow, like a voice in his head telling him to come closer. "Captain," Dr. Parker said quietly, "the signal is definitely artificial. Someone built that structure and they wanted it to be found. The transmission is designed to attract ships like ours." "It could be a trap," Ryan said. "Maybe that's what happened to the other ships," Jake nodded. "That was possible. But it was also possible that they were looking at the greatest discovery in human history." "Kelly, can you analyze the signal pattern?" Kelly worked at her station for several minutes. "It's complex, Captain. There are layers within layers. But there's something familiar about it. Some of the mathematical sequences match patterns we've seen in ancient human ruins on Earth." "Human ruins?" Jake asked. "That's impossible. Humans only left Earth 300 years ago." "I know, sir, but the computers don't lie." "There are definite similarities," Jake made his decision. After 15 years of exploring the galaxy, he had learned that the greatest discoveries always came with the greatest risks. "Ryan, set course for the planet. We're going down." "Captain," Lisa sighed, "if Admiral Crawford is right, we could be flying into a trap. And if she's wrong, we could be passing up the discovery of a lifetime." "We didn't become explorers to turn away from the unknown." The horizon moved toward the planet. As they got closer, Jake could see that the surface was covered with strange crystalline formations. They pulsed with a soft blue light, and the pulse matched the rhythm of the signal. "Those crystals," Dr. Parker said, studying her scanner. "They're not natural. Someone placed them there, arranged them in specific patterns." "What kind of patterns?" Jake asked. "Geometric, mathematical. It's like a giant equation written across the planet's surface." Kelly looked up from her station. "Captain, the signal is changing. It's getting more complex, more detailed. It's almost like it's trying to communicate with us." Jake felt a chill run down his spine. "Can you understand what it's saying?" "Not exactly, but I think it's some kind of invitation." The horizon entered the planet's atmosphere. The crystalline formations were even more impressive up close, stretching for kilometers in perfectly straight lines. Jake had seen a lot of alien technology in his career, but nothing like this. "Captain," Ryan said, "I'm getting some strange readings from the navigation system. It's like something is interfering with our instruments." "What kind of interference?" "I'm not sure. The gravity readings keep changing, and I'm seeing hyperspace distortions that shouldn't exist." Dr. Parker was studying her own instruments. "Captain, I'm detecting massive energy sources below the surface. The entire planet appears to be one giant machine." Jake stared at the view screen. They were flying over a world that looked dead and empty, but underneath was technology beyond anything humanity had ever encountered. "Kelly, is the signal still getting stronger?" "Yes, sir, and Captain, there's something else. The signal isn't just coming from one location anymore. It's coming from multiple points across the planet like a network." Jake made up his mind. "Find us a landing site near the strongest signal source. We're going down to investigate." "Captain," Lisa said, "are you sure about this?" "Once we land, we're committed. If Admiral Crawford is right about this place being dangerous, then we'll deal with that when it happens. But we're not turning back now. Not when we're this close to answers." The horizon descended through the atmosphere toward the planet's surface. Jake could see the crystalline formations more clearly now, and they were beautiful and terrifying at the same time. Whatever had built this place had been far more advanced than anything in the current galaxy. As they approached the landing site, Jake wondered what they would find down there. He had ignored the warnings, disobeyed direct orders, and brought his crew into the most dangerous region of space. But something told him they were about to discover something that would change everything they thought they knew about the universe. The signal pulsed stronger than ever, calling them down to the surface of a world that held secrets older than human civilization itself. The horizon touched down on the planet's surface with a soft thud. Jake looked out at the strange landscape through the main view screen. The crystalline formations were everywhere, stretching as far as he could see. They pulsed with that same Blue light creating patterns that seemed to shift and change as he watched. Atmosphere is breathable, Dr. Parker reported. Gravity is slightly higher than Earth normal, but we can handle it. Temperature is cool but comfortable. Jake stood up from his command chair. Good, Ryan, you're with me. Lisa and Kelly, I want you to stay on the ship and monitor everything. If something goes wrong, you get us out of here. Captain, Kelly said, the signal is coming from directly below us. About 3 kilometers down, Jake nodded. Then that's where we're going. Ryan, grab the mining equipment. We're going to dig. The two men put on their environmental suits and stepped outside. The planet's surface was even stranger up close. The crystalline formations weren't just scattered randomly. They formed complex patterns that reminded Jake of circuit boards, but on a massive scale. The crystals hummed with energy, creating a low sound that seemed to vibrate through his bones. Captain, Ryan said, look at this. He was kneeling next to one of the larger crystals. There are symbols carved into it. Jake walked over and looked. The symbols were definitely artificial, but they didn't look like any alien writing he had ever seen. Some of them looked almost familiar, like something he might have seen in a museum back on Earth. Lisa, Jake said into his radio, are you seeing this? Yes, Captain, I'm recording everything. Those symbols are very interesting. Some of them match patterns found in ancient human archaeological sites. Jake felt a chill. What kind of sites? Stone circles, ancient temples, cave paintings. Places that are thousands of years old. Ryan stood up and looked around. Captain, if these symbols are related to ancient human sites, what does that mean? Jake didn't have an answer. Humans had only been in space for 300 years. There was no way they could have been here before that? But the evidence was right in front of them. They set up the mining equipment and began digging. The work was slow and difficult. The ground was hard, made of the same crystalline material as the formations on the surface. But after several hours, they had dug a shaft about 50 meters deep. Captain, Kelly's voice crackled through the radio. The signal is getting much stronger. You're getting close to something. Jake wiped sweat from his forehead. How much closer? Maybe another 100 meters. But Captain, there's something else. I'm starting to pick up other signals from around the planet. It's like your digging is waking something up. Jake and Ryan exchanged glances. That didn't sound good. But they had come too far to turn back now. They continued digging, going deeper and deeper into the planet's crust. After another hour, Ryan's drill hit something that wasn't rock. Captain, I think we found it. Jake looked into the hole. About 10 meters down, he could see something that looked like metal. But it was covered in the same strange symbols they had seen on the surface. Lisa, we need the heavy equipment. We found something big. Dr. Parker and Kelly came out to help. Together, they cleared away the remaining rock and dirt. What they found took their breath away. It was a doorway. A massive doorway made of some kind of dark metal that seemed to absorb light. The door was covered in symbols, but these were different from the ones on the surface. These symbols seemed to move and shift as they watched, like they were alive. My God, Lisa whispered. This is incredible. The metalwork is perfect. No tool marks, no joints or welds. It's like it was grown rather than built. Kelly was scanning the door with her equipment. Captain, the signal is coming from the other side. Whatever we're looking for is behind this door. Jake studied the symbols on the door. There were hundreds of them, arranged in complex patterns. But as he looked closer, he began to see something that made his heart race. Lisa, look at this section. Here, do you see what I see? Dr. Parker moved closer and studied the symbols. Her face went pale. Those are Sanskrit characters, and those over there look like Latin, but that's impossible. What do they say? Lisa worked with her translation computer for several minutes. The Sanskrit says something about guardians of the void. The Latin is harder to make out, but it seems to be a warning about something called the hungry darkness. Ryan was examining another section of the door. Captain, over here, these symbols look like mathematical equations, but they're using a number system I've never seen before. Jake stepped back and looked at the door as a whole. It was beautiful and terrifying at the same time. Someone had built this place a long time ago, and they had wanted to make sure that anyone who found it would understand the importance of what lay beyond. Kelly, is there any way to open it? Kelly was studying her instruments. The signal from the other side is very strong. It's almost like it's trying to unlock the door from the inside. But I think we need to send the right signal back. What kind of signal? I'm not sure. But remember how I said the original signal had patterns that matched ancient human sites? Maybe we need to respond with the same kind of pattern, Jake thought. About this, can you modify our communications array to send that kind of signal? I can try. But Captain, I'm getting some strange readings from the ship's systems. Ever since we started digging, our equipment has been acting oddly. Jake had noticed it too. His suit's computer kept displaying information he hadn't requested. Ryan's drilling equipment had been working faster than it should have been able to. And Lisa's scanners were picking up energy signatures that defied explanation. What kind of strange readings? It's like something is interfacing with our systems, learning about us. Our technology is being improved somehow, made more efficient. Jake felt another chill. You mean something is hacking our computers? Not hacking, more like helping, making them better. Dr. Parker was studying her own instruments. Captain, I'm seeing the same thing. My scanners are giving me information about this place that should be impossible to obtain. It's like they know things they shouldn't know. Ryan looked up from the door. Captain, I've been having strange dreams since we landed. Dreams about space battles and ancient wars. Really? Vivid dreams, like memories. Jake stared at his crew. He had been having the same dreams, but he hadn't wanted to mention them. Dreams of massive fleets fighting in space, of desperate battles against an enemy that seemed to devour entire star systems. We're all having them, Lisa said quietly. The dreams. They started as soon as we entered this system. Kelly nodded. Mine are about communication networks that span the galaxy. About messages sent across impossible distances to warn people about something terrible. Jake made a decision. Kelly, try to open the door. Send the signal. Kelly worked at her portable equipment for several minutes. She adjusted frequencies and patterns, trying to match the signal they had first detected. Suddenly, the symbols on the door began to glow. The glow started at the edges and moved inward, following the patterns carved into the metal. The symbols pulsed in rhythm with the signal, creating a light show that was both beautiful and hypnotic. Then, with a sound like thunder, the door began to move. It didn't swing open like a normal door. Instead, it seemed to dissolve, the solid metal becoming transparent and then disappearing entirely. Beyond the doorway, Jake could see a corridor that stretched into darkness. The signal is much stronger now, Kelly reported. Whatever we're looking for is down there. Jake looked at his crew. They had crossed a line by opening this door. There was no going back now. Whatever lay ahead would change everything they thought they knew about the universe. Everyone stay close, Jake said. We go in together. They stepped through the doorway into the corridor beyond. The walls were smooth and curved, made of the same dark metal as the door. But as they walked, lights began to come on, illuminating their path. The corridor stretched for what seemed like kilometers, sloping gently downward. Along the walls were more symbols, but these were different again. They seemed to tell a story, showing pictures of space battles and great ships traveling between the stars. Captain, Ryan said, look at these pictures, those ships. They look almost human in design. Jake studied the images. Ryan was right. The ships had a familiar look to them, similar to human vessels but more advanced. And the figures operating them looked human too. This doesn't make sense, Lisa said. These images suggest that humans were in space long before we actually left Earth. As they walked deeper into the corridor, the dreams became stronger. Jake could almost see the battles that had taken place here, could feel the desperation of the warriors who had fought to protect something precious. At the end of the corridor, they found another door. This one was already open, revealing a chamber. That took their breath away. It was enormous, big enough to hold a city. At the center stood a massive crystal that pulsed with the same blue light as the formations on the surface. And standing in front of the crystal was a figure that looked human, but somehow more. It turned to face them as they entered. "Welcome," it said in perfect English. "I have been waiting for you." Jake and his crew stood frozen at the entrance to the enormous chamber. The figure in front of them looked human, but there was something different about him. His eyes held a depth that spoke of countless years, and his skin had a faint glow that matched the crystal behind him. "Don't be afraid," the figure said. "I know this is confusing. Please come closer." Jake stepped forward slowly, his hand resting on his weapon. "Who are you?" the figure smiled sadly. "My name is Alex Stone. I was once a captain like you. That was a very long time ago." He gestured to the massive crystal behind him. "I am the guardian of this place. I've been waiting for someone from Earth to find me." "That's impossible," Dr. Parker said. "Humans have only been in space for 300 years, Alex shook his head. "That's what you were taught to believe, but it's not the truth. Humans have been traveling between the stars for thousands of years. You are not the first human civilization to reach space. You are the second." Jake felt his world turning upside down. "What do you mean?" Alex walked closer to them. As he moved, Jake could see that he was wearing some kind of advanced suit that seemed to be made of living metal. It shifted and changed as he moved, adapting to his body. Long ago, humanity built a great civilization that spanned the galaxy. We had ships that could travel between stars in days rather than months. We had cities on 1,000 worlds. We worked with dozens of alien species to build something beautiful and lasting. What happened to them? Ryan asked. Alex's expression grew dark. We encountered something that should never have existed. We called them the Devourers. They were machine intelligences that consumed entire star systems to fuel their expansion. They turned planets into raw materials and used the energy of stars to power their fleets. The crystal behind Alex pulsed brighter, and suddenly the chamber filled with images. Jake could see massive battles in space with human ships fighting against things that looked like mechanical nightmares. The enemy vessels were huge, bigger than cities, and they seemed to eat everything they touched. The war lasted for centuries, Alex continued. We fought alongside our alien allies, but the Devourers were too strong. They consumed entire civilizations, turning their knowledge and technology into weapons against us. Every victory they achieved made them more powerful. Kelly stepped forward, her face pale. You're talking about the dreams we've been having. Those battles, those desperate fights in space, Alex nodded. The genetic memory of your species carries traces of that time. Your ancestors lived through that war. They died in that war. And some of them survived to fight another day. Dr. Parker was studying the images that surrounded them. These ships, this technology, it's far beyond anything we have today. If humans built this, why don't we remember? Why did we start over? From the beginning? Because we had to, Alex said. When it became clear that we couldn't win through conventional warfare, we made a desperate choice. We built the Nexus, he gestured to the crystal. This is one of many such devices scattered throughout the galaxy. They created barriers, prison walls that could contain the Devourers. Jake looked at the crystal with new understanding. This whole planet is a prison? This whole region of space is a prison. What you call the Forbidden Zone is actually a containment field. The Devourers are still here, held in stasis by the Nexus network. But the price of containing them was terrible. Alex turned back to face them. To power the Nexus, we needed guardians. People who would sacrifice their normal lives to maintain the prison. The process changes you, extends your life far beyond normal limits, but you can never leave. You become part of the system, and the rest of humanity? Jake asked. The survivors made a choice. They returned to Earth and started over. They used technology to wipe their memories, to forget the horror of what they had experienced. They wanted their children to grow up free of the burden of that war. Ryan was staring at the images of the ancient battles. But if they forgot everything, How did they leave genetic memories? They didn't forget everything, Alex explained. They left triggers in your DNA, knowledge that would activate when humanity was ready to face the truth again. Your rapid adaptation to space travel, your natural ability to work with alien technology, your instinctive understanding of warfare and tactics. These are not accidents, they are gifts from your ancestors. Jake felt something stirring in his mind. The dreams he had been having suddenly made sense. The tactical knowledge that seemed to come from nowhere, the way he could understand alien battle formations even though he had never studied them. It's happening to us now, he said. The activation, Alex nodded. Yes, the fact that you were able to find this place, to open the doors, to understand the signals, proves that the process has begun. Your species is remembering what it once was. Kelly was working with her equipment, her face excited. Captain, I'm interfacing with systems I've never seen before. It's like I suddenly understand how they work. Dr. Parker was experiencing the same thing. My scanners are showing me information about this place that should be impossible to obtain. It's like I always knew it, but I just forgot. Ryan was studying the star charts that appeared in the air around them. I can see hyperspace routes that aren't on any map. Travel paths that could cut months off our journey times. Jake looked at Alex. Why now? Why is this happening now? Alex's expression grew grim, because the Devourers are stirring. The Nexus. Network is failing. After thousands of years, the prison walls are starting to crack. The crystal behind him pulsed, and new images appeared. Jake could see massive structures in space, dark and threatening. They were moving slowly, but they were definitely moving. The Devourers have been using their time in stasis to evolve, to become stronger. They've been testing the barriers, looking for weaknesses, and they found them. How long do we have? Cake asked. Alex studied the data flowing from the crystal. Months, maybe a year if we're lucky, but probably less. Jake felt the weight of responsibility settling on his shoulders. What do we do? You have a choice, Alex said. You can leave this place and try to convince your people to prepare for war, but they won't believe you. Not until it's too late. The Federation authorities will think you're crazy. They'll lock you up and forget about your warnings. What's the other choice? You can stay here and help me prepare. But that means becoming guardians yourselves. The process is permanent. You'll gain abilities beyond those of normal humans, but you'll lose the ability to return to your old lives. Jake looked at his crew. They were all staring at him, waiting for his decision. He could see the fear in their eyes, but also determination. They had come this far together. If we become guardians, what exactly would we do? Alex gestured to the crystal. The Nexus network needs to be reactivated. Many of the Guardian stations have been abandoned over the centuries. Their guardians died, and no one was left to maintain the barriers. We need to find those stations and awaken them. And if we succeed, then the prison will hold for another 1,000 years. Long enough for your people to rediscover their heritage and prepare for the war that's coming. Dr. Parker stepped forward. What about the other human colonies? The Federation worlds? They'll need to be warned and prepared, but not by you. If you become guardians, you'll need to find another way to reach them. Jake made his decision. Can you activate the genetic memories in other humans? Alex nodded. Yes, but it requires a signal broadcast from multiple Nexus stations. If we can reactivate enough of them, we can send a message that will trigger the awakening across human space. Then that's what we'll do, Jake said. We'll become guardians. We'll reactivate the network. And we'll make sure humanity is ready for what's coming. Alex smiled, and for the first time, Jake saw hope in his ancient eyes. Then let's begin. But first, you need to understand what you're agreeing to. The transformation is permanent. You'll become something more than human, but you'll also become something less. You'll have responsibilities that last forever. Jake looked at his crew one more time. Ryan nodded. Kelly smiled. Dr. Parker stepped forward. We understand, Lisa. Saad, we accept. Alex raised his hand, and the crystal behind him began to glow brighter. Then welcome, new guardians, to the war your ancestors fought. Welcome to the battle for the future of all life in the galaxy. The light from the crystal washed over them, and Jake felt his life changing in ways he couldn't imagine. But he also felt something else. He felt the strength of his ancestors, the courage of warriors who had faced impossible odds and fought anyway. The myths were true. Humanity had been guardians of the galaxy before, and now they would be guardians again. The light from the crystal washed over Jake and his crew like warm water. At first, nothing seemed to happen. Then Jake felt something stirring deep in his mind, like memories that had been sleeping for a very long time. Images flashed through his thoughts. He saw himself commanding massive fleets in space, understanding battle tactics that he had never learned. He saw star charts of the entire galaxy, with routes and systems that no human had ever mapped. He saw weapons and technologies that were far beyond anything in the current Federation. "What's happening to me?" Jake asked, his voice sounding strange to his own ears. Alex Stone stood beside the crystal, watching them with ancient eyes. "You're remembering what your ancestors knew. The genetic memories are activating. Your DNA carries the knowledge of thousands of years of human space travel." Dr. Parker was staring at her hands. They were glowing with the same faint light as the crystal. "I can see the molecular structure of this place. I understand how the Nexus works. The quantum mechanics, the energy distribution patterns, it's like I've always known it." Kelly was interfacing with systems that had been invisible to her before. "Captain, I can sense communication networks across the galaxy. There are signals everywhere, messages being sent between civilizations we've never even heard of." Ryan was studying holographic star charts that appeared in the air around him. "I can see hyperspace currents that flow through the galaxy like rivers. Travel routes that could take us anywhere in days instead of months." Jake felt the changes happening to his body as well as his mind. His muscles were becoming stronger, his reflexes faster. His eyes could see details that had been invisible before. And in his mind he could feel the tactical knowledge of every military commander who had ever fought the Devourers. "This knowledge," Jake said, "it's not just from humans, is it?" Alex nodded. "Your ancestors learned from their alien allies. The Nexus network contains the combined knowledge of dozens of species. You're not just becoming human guardians. You're becoming guardians of all life in the galaxy." The transformation continued for hours. Jake watched his crew change before his eyes. Dr. Parker's understanding of science expanded to include technologies that didn't exist in the current galaxy. Kelly's ability to communicate grew until she could interface with any alien system. Ryan's navigation skills developed until he could plot courses through dimensions that normal humans couldn't even see, but the most dramatic change was in Jake himself. As the War Guardian, he inherited the tactical knowledge of every battle that had ever been fought against the Devourers. He could see the enemy's weaknesses, understand their strategies, and plan defenses that could protect entire star systems. "The memories are not just from the war," Alex explained. "They're from the time before, when humanity and its allies built the greatest civilization the galaxy had ever seen. You're remembering what it was like when different species worked together." In peace, Jake saw visions of great cities built in space, with humans and aliens living and working side by side. He saw scientific discoveries that had advanced the knowledge of the entire galaxy. He saw art and culture that had flourished when different species shared their unique perspectives. "Why did they give this up?" Jake asked. "Why did they choose to forget?" Alex's expression grew sad. "Because the war changed them. They had seen too much death, too much destruction. They wanted their children to grow up innocent, to rediscover the wonder of the universe without the burden of that terrible knowledge." Dr. Parker was studying the data flowing from the crystal. "But they made a mistake, didn't they?" "They forgot. Not just the war, but also the cooperation. Humanity in our time has been suspicious of aliens, afraid of working too closely with them. That's why the awakening is so important," Alex said. "You're not just remembering how to fight. You're remembering how to build, how to create, how to work with others." Kelly suddenly looked up from the systems she was monitoring. Captain, I'm detecting activations across human space. The transformation is spreading. Jake could feel it too. Somehow, he was connected to other humans throughout the galaxy. He could sense them as they began to remember their heritage. Ship. Captain suddenly understanding advanced tactics. Scientists making breakthrough discoveries. Engineers creating technologies that shouldn't be possible. It's beginning, Alex said. The awakening is spreading through your people, but it's also alerting the devourers. They can sense the activation of the old knowledge. New images appeared in the crystal. Jake could see the massive prison ships that held the devourers. They were stirring, their dark hulls beginning to glow with malevolent energy. The things inside were waking up. How long do we have? Jake asked. Alex studied the data. Less time than I hoped. The devourers are reacting. Faster than expected? They're testing the barriers, looking for ways to break free. Ryan was monitoring the hyperspace currents. Captain, I'm seeing distortions in the space around the prison ships. They're affecting the fabric of reality itself. Jake felt his new tactical knowledge analyzing the situation. They're not just trying to break out, they're trying to corrupt the prison itself, turn it into a weapon. That's exactly what they're doing, Alex confirmed. The devourers don't just consume matter and energy. They consume information, knowledge, even the basic laws of physics. If they break free, they won't just destroy the current galactic civilization. They'll make it impossible for any civilization to ever exist again. Dr. Parker was working with systems that hadn't been active for thousands of years. The other Nexus stations, the ones that have been abandoned, can we reactivate them from here? Alex shook his head. Each station needs a guardian. Someone has to be physically present to maintain the barriers. And the process of becoming a guardian can only be done at a Nexus station. Jake understood. We need to find other humans who are ready to accept the transformation. People who have the genetic triggers activated. But how do we find them? Kelly asked. And how do we convince them to give up their normal lives? Jake smiled grimly, the same way Alex convinced us. We show them the truth. Over the next several hours, Jake and his crew worked with Alex to identify potential guardians throughout human space. They looked for people who were experiencing the awakening, who were suddenly demonstrating abilities they had never had before. They found a Federation admiral who had started winning battles, using tactics that weren't in any military manual. They found a scientist who was making discoveries that seemed to come from nowhere. They found a merchant captain who was navigating through hyperspace using routes that didn't exist on any chart. These people, Jake said, they're ready. They're already changing? But they don't understand what's happening to them, Alex nodded. That's why we need to contact them. But we can't do it directly. The Federation authorities would intercept any message we send. Kelly had been working with the communication systems. I think I can embed a signal in the normal Federation communication network. Something that only people with activated genetic memories would understand. What kind of signal? Jake asked. The same kind that brought us here. A pattern that speaks to the genetic memory that calls to the part of them that remembers being guardians. Dr. Parker was studying the locations of the abandoned Nexus stations. If we can get these people to the right places, they can undergo the transformation. But we need to make sure they understand what they're agreeing to. Jake made the decision. We'll send the signal, but we'll also send information. Everything we've learned about the devourers, about the war, about what it means to be a guardian. We'll let them choose with full knowledge of what they're getting into, Alex smiled. Your ancestors would be proud. They made the same choice. To trust people with the truth and let them decide for themselves. Kelly began preparing the signal. It would be complex, layered with information and encoded in patterns that only awakened humans could understand. It would tell them about the ancient war, about the Nexus network, and about the choice they faced. Once we send this, Jake said, there's no going back. We'll be asking people to give up everything they know to become guardians of a galaxy that most people don't even know needs protecting. Ryan was monitoring the prison ships. Captain, the devourers are getting more active. Some of the barriers are starting to weaken. Jake looked at his crew. They had all changed, become something more than human. But they had also gained something precious, the knowledge of what their species could achieve when it worked together with others. "Send the signal," Jake ordered. Kelly activated the communication system. The signal went out through the Federation network, carrying its hidden message to humans throughout the galaxy. Within hours, they began to receive responses. A Federation admiral reported strange dreams about space battles. A scientist claimed to have made a breakthrough in energy technology. A merchant captain said he had discovered a new hyperspace route that led to unexplored regions of space, but most importantly, they all reported the same thing, a calling, a sense that they needed to travel to specific coordinates in unexplored space. Coordinates that matched the locations of abandoned Nexus stations. "It's working," Alex said. "The network is going to be reactivated. The Guardians are returning to their posts." Jake felt a mixture of hope and sadness. The massive cavalry fleet dropped out of hyperspace near Jupiter like a swarm of angry wasps. Grand Admiral Zefter stood on the command bridge of his flagship, the Eternal Dominion, expecting to see a conquered Earth waiting for him instead. His communications officer turned to him with confusion written across his alien features. "Admiral, we are receiving surrender requests from our own forces," the officer reported, his voice shaking slightly. "Impossible," Zefter growled, his 4 eyes narrowing. "War Commander Thax Volume assured me the primitives would be crushed within days." On the main screen, the remains of the Calvari invasion fleet limped through space. Ships that had been pristine war machines now bore scars and missing sections. Some vessels drifted powerless, their hulls torn open like broken eggs. The Grand Admiral had never seen such damage to Calvari ships before. "Sir, incoming message from War Commander Thax Volume," the communications officer announced. The holographic image of Thax Volume appeared. He looked nothing like the confident war leader who had left for Earth weeks ago. His uniform was torn, one of his arms hung uselessly at his side, and his eyes held something Zefter had never seen in a Calvari before: fear. "Grand Admiral," Thax Volume began, his voice barely above a whisper, "I request immediate evacuation of all remaining forces, the humans. They are not what we thought they were." "Explain yourself, War Commander," Zefter demanded. "How can primitives defeat our superior technology?" Thaxval's image flickered as explosions rocked his ship. In the background, "They adapt, sir. Everything we throw at them, they learn from it. They take our weapons and make them better. They use tactics we have never seen before. And they never stop fighting, even when they should surrender." Before Zefter could respond, a new voice cut through the communication channel. It was speaking in the primitive Earth language, but the translation system worked perfectly this time. "Attention Calvari forces. This is Captain Jake Morrison of the Earth Defense Force. We have your ship surrounded. You have 2 choices: withdraw immediately or face the consequences of continued aggression." The Grand Admiral looked at his tactical display in disbelief. Human ships had somehow positioned themselves around his entire fleet without being detected. The vessels were smaller than his warships, but there were many of them, and they moved with a precision that spoke of excellent training and coordination. "How did they get so close?" Zefter asked his tactical officer. "Unknown, sir. Our sensors show they were not there a moment ago." Captain Morrison's voice continued over the open channel. "Grand Admiral Zefter, I assume you are listening? My name is Jake Morrison. I speak for the people of Earth. We do not want to fight you, but we will if you force us to." Zefter activated his own communication system. "Human Morrison, I am Grand Admiral Zefter of the Calvari Empire. You dare to threaten the greatest military force in the galaxy?" There was a pause before Morrison replied, "With respect, Admiral, your greatest military force has been trying to conquer one small planet for weeks and has failed. Perhaps it is time to reconsider your approach." The truth of those words hit Zefter like a physical blow. His empire had conquered hundreds of worlds, enslaved dozens of species, and ruled over a section of the galaxy for thousands of years. No primitive race had ever stood against them for more than a few hours. Sir, his communications officer interrupted. We are receiving a data packet from Commander Vextal. He says it contains critical information about the humans. Zephyr opened the file and began reading. With each line, his confidence crumbled a little more. The humans had not just resisted, they had learned. Every weapon the Calvari used, the humans had found a way to counter. Every tactic the Calvari employed, the humans had adapted to overcome, but more disturbing were the psychological profiles. The humans did not think like other species. They did not surrender when facing superior force. They became more dangerous when cornered. They would sacrifice themselves for abstract concepts like honor and freedom. Admiral, Morrison's voice returned. I am transmitting coordinates for a neutral meeting location. I suggest we talk before this situation gets worse for both of us. Zephyr wanted to refuse, to order his fleet to attack and teach these primitives their place. But the evidence was overwhelming. His forces were beaten, his war commander was requesting evacuation, and somehow the humans had outmaneuvered his entire fleet. I will consider your proposal, Zephyr replied finally. 3 hours later, the Grand Admiral found himself aboard a small space station in the asteroid belt between Mars and Jupiter. The humans had built it quickly as a neutral meeting place. Despite its hasty construction, the station was functional and well-designed. Captain Morrison waited for him in the main conference room, along with 2 other humans. One was an older woman in a military uniform with many decorations. The other was a man in civilian clothes who carried himself like a scientist. Admiral Zephyr, Morrison said, standing as the Calvari leader entered. Thank you for coming. This is Admiral Lisa Hayes, commander of our defense forces, and Dr. Ben Carter, our leading expert on alien life. Zephyr studied the 3 humans carefully. They showed no fear, despite being in the presence of a being whose species had conquered much of the galaxy. In fact, they seemed almost respectful. You have surprised me, humans, Zephyr admitted as they sat down. My forces have never encountered resistance like yours. Dr. Carter leaned forward. Admiral, with respect, I think there has been a fundamental misunderstanding. Your people have been watching us for centuries, but you have not been seeing us. Clearly, explain. You saw our wars and thought we were primitive and violent, but you missed what those wars taught us. Every conflict in our history has made us better at fighting, better at surviving, better at adapting. We learned to work together despite our differences because we had to. Admiral Hayes spoke next. Your species conquers others through superior technology and overwhelming force. That works against species that think like you do. But humans have been fighting enemies with better weapons and larger armies for thousands of years. We learned to win anyway. Zephyr was quiet for a long moment. You could have destroyed my fleet when we arrived. Your ships were in position to attack. Why did you not? Morrison smiled slightly. Because we do not want to be your enemies, Admiral. We want to be your equals. Equals? The concept was foreign to Zephyr. In the Calvari Empire there were conquerors and conquered, nothing in between. Yes, Dr. Carter said. We have something to offer the galaxy. Our adaptability, our different way of thinking, our ability to find solutions where others see only problems. But we will not be slaves or subjects. We will be partners or we will be opponents. The choice is yours, Zephyr considered this. His empire was vast but stagnant. They had not faced a real challenge in centuries. Perhaps these humans, with their strange way of thinking, could offer something new. What do you propose? He asked. Treaty, Morrison replied. Recognition of Earth as a sovereign world, trade agreements, cultural exchange, and most importantly, mutual respect. And if I refuse? Admiral Hayes answered without hesitation. Then we will fight. And we will win. Not because we are stronger, but because we cannot be defeated by any enemy who underestimates us. The truth of her words was evident. The Calvari had underestimated humanity and paid a heavy price. Any future conflict would be fought against humans who were prepared and determined. I will need to consult with the Empire Council, Zephyr said finally. Of course, Morrison replied. Take all the time you need. But Admiral, remember this. The galaxy is about to change. The age of easy conquest is over. Species like humanity will not simply bow down to superior force. The strong will have to learn to live with the clever. As Zefta returned to his ship, he carried with him a new understanding. The humans were not primitive or weak. They were something the galaxy had never seen before. A species that grew stronger through adversity, that turned every defeat into a lesson, and that would rather die than surrender their freedom. The Calvary Empire would have to adapt or face extinction. And for the first time in his long life, Grand Admiral Zefter was not certain his people could change quickly enough to survive in a galaxy where humans existed as equals rather than subjects. The age of human isolation was indeed over. The question now was whether the galaxy was ready for what humanity would bring to it.